Have you heard the news of the battle going on in the town of Beit Mazmil? You can listen closely in the wind blowing west from Jerusalem, but you won't hear the sound of gunfire. Nevertheless, out here in the Judean hills, there is a battle going on. A quiet day-to-day struggle against sickness and insecurity. A fight for life. In the early morning, when the dew is still damp upon the hills, I come to work at Beit Mazmil, in this town that I have come to know as well as the place where I was born, among these children that I have come to love though they were my own. The familiar scene that seems no different from any of 100 settlements here in Israel. Housewives and workmen going about the simple tasks of mourning. But look carefully along these streets, for this is no ordinary town. This is a frontier, a laboratory for a profound experiment. In this place are stationed 2 Hadassah medical teams, doctor, health educator, caseworker, and nurse, that's me, treating 700 families from 56 countries, reaching out to touch the entire shape of their lives, giving lectures on sanitation and baby formulas, administering physical checkups and minor surgery, dealing with every ill from heart trouble to loneliness, asking, tell me where it hurts, in 40 different tongues. I remember the morning, early in April, with the first wildflowers coming up on the stone hills. On my way to work, I came across a new family, immigrants from somewhere in Europe. From my first look at them, I could tell that once, long ago, back in the old country, they had had a solid, comfortable life. Don't ask me how I knew. After a while, you get so you can read the subtle signs. Those few precious possessions they'd managed to cling to, Lord knows how. A family portrait, a man's battered sport jacket, like dim echoes of some faded glory. I remember the child with blue eyes, watchful and sensitive as a deer in the mountains. I told her, my name is Shoshana, and she answered in a half-whisper, mine is Aviva. So here was one more family to care for. One more added to the many. The 1,500 families that our medical teams keep touch with and watch over day by day. I played a sort of one-woman welcoming committee, wishing them luck in their new home and saying we'd be expecting to see them at the clinic in the morning for a checkup. They looked a little bewildered by it all, but healthy. I never dreamed the drama that lay ahead. They were there bright and early, moving in among the streams of families from Morocco and Poland, from Bulgaria and Yemen. The faces I had come to know so well. All the marvelous crossweave that gives our country its strength. The familiar features I could just glance at and have their whole histories flash through my mind. That one has trouble sleeping nights. That one had pneumonia at the age of 3 back in the ghetto in Yemen. I remember that morning I took up a brand new family casebook. The book that was our special symbol, taking the family not as separate individuals, but as a single unit, a tapestry woven on a single loom. It's always a curious moment when you hold those blank pages, so soon to be filled with sorrow or happiness, tragedy or hope, and you can never help wondering, which will it be? Wife's name, Rachel. Father's previous employment, running a haberdashery shop back in Romania. Present employment, none. Children, Aviva, age 9. Shlomo, aged 8 months. Place of birth, Bucharest, except for little Shlomo, born in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Previous place of residence, Amabara, a tin shack in the immigrant camp of Talpiot. I suppose they'd been through 50 questionings of one kind or another in the 2 years since they came to Israel. It took a while before it began to dawn on them that this might be something different. That this might be something more than a quick formality, more than the mechanical gathering of a few statistics. They were in for a complete, skilled, careful examination such as they had never known. It took a while for them to grasp the astonishing fact that we were there not just for the sick, but for the healthy, to prevent their getting sick. The baby was a pure delight. Weight perfect, arches coming along nicely, eyes clear, appetite like a young horse. But somehow I could have predicted that the father would be suffering from all sorts of vague, wandering pains. A man spends his years behind a shop counter selling shirts and ties, and now suddenly he finds himself faced with the rugged life of a frontier nation. He was bound to have trouble getting adjusted. The most common symptom being a slight touch of that garden disease of the displaced, hypochondria. I remember when we began to examine Aviva, the strangest thing happened. I can't say just what it was, but my heart went out to her. I don't know, she had a kind of air about her, as though she were off in a secret world all her own. I kept wanting to reach out and smooth her hair. Everything went along in its usual routine. It was when we came to the heart that I had the sinking sensation that something was wrong. There seemed to be that strange offbeat tempo, like a broken trip hammer, the warning of a congenital heart condition. The sound we call a machinery-type murmur. Possible diagnosis, patent ductus arteriosus. In spite of that deadly-sounding name, it wasn't a fatal condition, not even very dangerous. But if she had it, it would mean that she would never quite be able to keep up with other children. She would always move more slowly and tire more quickly. She would know the one thing that is so agonizing for a child, being different. All through the day, as I went about my work, in the back of my mind I kept thinking about Aviva. I kept telling telling myself, it's only a first examination. We can still be wrong. It's much too soon to be sure. I could feel growing in me the desire to fight for that child. And I had the comforting knowledge that whatever happened, I wouldn't be fighting alone. That's the exciting thing about this place. The unique design that sets it apart. You never work alone. You work as a team. Each skilled technician treating a different phase of family life, and then all of us coming together at the staff conference to pool what we've learned. Our patients aren't people who just walked in the door. They're people we see at work and at home, people we live among. We know the food they eat, their joys and their sorrow, their secret dreams. When we took up the case of Aviva's family, I remember it was Devorah, our health educator, who reported first. On her visit to the house, she'd found the family still not really settled. The mother seemed a little disorganized, but an essentially healthy, warm-hearted woman. She didn't know much about a balanced diet. She had a habit of throwing everything into one pot. She agreed to come to the Hadassah clinic to attend the cooking demonstrations. She appeared energetic, curious, eager to learn. When it came to keeping a house, she had a long way to go. But whatever else she might lack, it was clear to Devorah that here was a woman who knew how to give a child love. Father now, that was a different story. Esther, our caseworker, reported that he'd missed several appointments. When she finally caught up with him, he was polite, but rather detached. He really didn't have any plans for finding a job. He seemed to have some grandiose scheme of trying to raise the capital to open a haberdashery shop in Jerusalem. It took several days before Esther could get him to turn up for an interview at the labor exchange. But the jobs they had didn't quite seem to suit his taste. He was like a man who wants to take a trip and can't decide where. He goes into a travel agency, and they show him a globe of the world. He spins it around for a while, and then asks, "Have you got anything else?" One of the jobs they offered him was helping to build a new playground outside the school. Esther said she tried to explain to him that Beit Mazmil was his community, his home, the place where his children would grow up, something to be proud of. She tried to make him see that his hands could help shape a future for Aviva, for little Shlomo. But it seemed to Esther that he just wasn't really interested. He was like a man lost in some private forest, and she had the feeling that before he could find a job, he would have to find himself. And then it was my turn to report on Aviva, to tell the thing that had happened that morning. She was out in the field beyond the school, playing with the others, trying her hardest to be like the rest of them, trying her best to keep up with the others. She had the spirit for it, but not the heart. The staff conference ended by the doctors deciding to send her down to Hadassah's Beit Hadegel hospital in Jerusalem for further tests. She was terrified when I came to tell her the news. It almost made me weep to see the beautiful way she slowly fought back the fears. The way she came to see that what lay ahead wasn't darkness and a dangerous nightmare, but the hope of morning. The chance that down there in the hospital, some great door might swing open on a new world. I can never walk the streets of Jerusalem without thinking about Hadassah. It's there everywhere you turn, like sunlight in the air. The network of hospitals spread out across the city, the Strauss Health Center with its crowded clinics, the Hadassah Hebrew University Medical School in its ancient temporary quarters. And sometimes I find my mind soaring above these streets, reaching out to the edge of the city, out to the new medical center, just going up now in the valley of Ein Karen. When it's finished, we'll have everything under one great white gleaming roof. Medical school, nurses training school, operating theaters, clinics and wards, all together at last. No more students working in one place while the surgeons they must learn from are off operating someplace else. No more doctors in one building while their laboratories are halfway across the city. No more makeshift quarters jammed for space. But it will take time before the medical center is completed. Meanwhile, at least we could be grateful we were working with first-rate equipment, as good as any in the world. The latest X-ray apparatus and electrocardiograph machines, in the hands of crack specialists, many of whom had been to America on Hadassah fellowships, perfecting their skills at Columbia Medical School, at Harvard, at Yale, at Johns Hopkins, at the Mayo Clinic. I watched those tests and waited for the verdict, and I had the comfort of knowing that nowhere on earth would this child be in better hands. I have been a nurse for 7 years, and yet I say it without shame. My hands were damp with tension the afternoon that we went in to hear the results of Aviva's tests. Diagnosis, as we had thought, patent ductus arteriosus. Recommendation, cardiac surgery. Chances for success, good. They switched Aviva over to Ziv Hospital and put her in a bed in the preoperative ward. And the cardiac surgery team came in to meet her. Anesthetist and cardiologist, surgeon and nurse, they all came. And I too. At every crucial step, I was to be there at her side. From this day until the hour when the operation was over, not for a single moment would this child be allowed to feel that she was among strangers. On the day of the operation, I can remember as though it were now, how very small she looked lying there on the table. And yet somehow she managed a wisp of a smile before they wheeled her into the theater. It was out of my hands now. All I could do was watch and wait and be there for reassurance when it was over. The minutes ticked by, and I tried to comfort myself by letting my mind wander, by trying to imagine how it would be one day when we were in our new medical center. We'd have operating theaters twice the size of this one, and visiting experts would come, as they come now, from England and South Africa, from Sweden and America. But then we'd have room for students to sit and see the operation carried into their classrooms by closed-circuit television, even if the rest of the country will not have television. But that was all in the future. Today, now, this moment, There was nothing to do but sit and wait. And at last it was over. And the surgeon turned, and on his lips there was a touch of a smile. And I knew that this particular battle was over. And we had won. In those first moments afterward, I think there was nothing but the pure, sweet sense of victory. It wasn't until later that it came to me that we still had a long way to go. Aviva had taken one step, but what happened next depended not only on the body, but on the spirit. Not only on the child, but on the family. Most of all, the father. He was the question mark now, and his life was woven with hers. What was it the poet said? No man is an island. At that first staff conference after Aviva came home, I don't think any of us could have foretold what would happen. Oh, there was a part of it we could guess. We could have foretold what the operation would do for Aviva, the slow, steady coming back to health, the new brightness in her eyes. But we could never have dreamed what it would do for her father. It was as though, at last, he had found something to live for. As though, now that we had given his child a new life, the least he could do was to help to give her a future. By the turn of the next April, Aviva was out playing with the others. I remember it was Arbor Day, Tu B'Shvat. I saw her out there among the children planting new seedlings in the spring earth. And I watched them, thinking, this is as it should be. There should be a ceremony to celebrate the rebirth of a child, as well as the rebirth of a season. And so we planted our seedlings. And out beyond the hills, in the valley of Ein Karam, another planting was going on. The new medical center that is rising up out of the stones. The new medical center. So easy to say, so easy to dream, but not so easy to make the dream come true. Month after month of work, year after months of waiting for help that must come from halfway across the world. That, too, was part of the Battle of Ein Karam, the fight for life. As the saying goes, God is in heaven above, and Israel is on the earth below, and the Lord will take care of his people. But between heaven above and the earth below, there's a lot of work to be done.